If you haven't seen it already, I want to recommend that you read a piece called The War on Truth. It was written by my friend Chris, who's from the Philippines, and it's the text that he used as part of a presentation that we hosted with CELDF, the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, back in July as part of an event titled Solidarity Against Tyranny. And Chris's point in this piece is to look at the role of fake news, misinformation, and propaganda in the information sphere. He looks at the breakdown of traditional media and the rise of social media platforms and internet-based media as a double-edged sword that on the one hand destabilized the hegemony of mainstream news sources and allowed for people to express themselves, but at the same time allowed for fake news, disinformation, and what he calls algorithm-driven echo chambers to proliferate. And he says these tools have become vital to the resurgence of authoritarianism and fascism around the world. I think this is a very important piece, and it is especially relevant in the era of AI content. I'm sure people have been seeing, if they're online at all, the rapid rise and spread of AI slop, as people are calling it. We're entering into a new post-truth era where what people see, what people read and hear cannot be trusted anymore. And this is a breakdown. It results in a breakdown of critical thinking that further reinforces the power of those who are already in power, of the ruling class. There are some complexities to this argument because, of course, with the decline of traditional centralized media platforms and the rise in decentralized media, many people will say, well, this is people power in action. This is the breakdown of these traditional institutions in favor of more grassroots, democratic journalism, reporting, writing, and content creation, and so on. It's not as simple as that for a couple different reasons. First, because, of course, like I said, AI slop, much of this content is actually being generated by bots. We know that intelligence agencies are involved in misinformation campaigns around the world that the internet age has allowed to become much more widespread and effective. This was in the Snowden leaks. It's been in multiple other leaks since then. We know that this is happening. And the other reason is that, of course, the ideology of most people creating content on the internet is going to reflect the ideology of those in power. That is cultural hegemony. That is ideological hegemony, like Gramsci talked about. So we see people speaking out in ways that reflect and reinforce the power of existing narratives, even sometimes when they seem to be trying to destabilize them. The end result of the way that they present their opinions, the way that they attempt to build a platform, is to reinforce the power of the powerful and reinforce the hegemony of these systems that we live under. And of course, these platforms also, they reward people who can game the algorithms in different ways. And so that's what we have come to, is this world in which trolls are essentially running the information distribution network of the world. We need, in the face of this, to really develop a nose for truth. We need to become researchers ourselves. We need to develop networks to have greater levels of understanding and to vet and develop our intellectual breakdown analysis of the situations we find ourselves in, what's happening in the world today, politics, and more. We are really seeing the truth of what Steve Bannon called the flood the zone with shit strategy, a strategy of just throwing material out there to confound the press, the media, the public, to bury them in a wash of crazy stuff, crazy material, unrelated information, just stuff that's so outrageous and ridiculous that it generates headlines. We see the Trump administration doing this every single day. in what I'm thinking of sort of a shock doctrine meets AI slop convergence. And this is a profoundly dangerous thing. It's why I have been calling for a long time, not just for better social media platforms or regulations on these things, but actually for rethinking the entire apparatus. I'm a proud Luddite, and I think the internet as a whole has done more harm to the world and to human consciousness and well-being than good by far. And that's not even taking into account the ecological harm that's associated with building the infrastructure, laying fiber optic cables across the ocean, building telecommunications networks, cell towers, data centers, all the energy and raw materials that goes into powering these things, repairing them, the fuel that's burned, the energy consumed, and so on. These things are a disaster for humans and for the planet, as far as I'm concerned. And I think we would be better off, full stop, if the internet and information technology in general did not exist. And I think this is actually becoming a viable political strategy increasingly, as we're seeing the rise of AI slop converging with these shock doctrine type techniques. And all of this is happening within the context of a hyper-capitalized society where the internet has become just a cesspool of monetization and advertising and malicious content and just garbage. People are increasingly fed up, and there is a rising movement, especially among young people, embracing Luddism and the Luddite philosophy more deeply than we have seen in quite some time. And I think this is actually the political future. This is the direction we need to be moving in. It's the direction our movements need to be supporting. And I think that there's a viable politics built on this. That's the work that we're doing. It's the work that I've been doing for many years and continue to do today. And I want folks to get involved. So let's collaborate, let's work together, let's fight, let's undermine these things. One of the issues that we've been hearing from folks a lot about lately is data centers. Communities facing data centers coming into their area, these often multi-billion-dollar corporations behind these data centers, doing things straight out of the playbook of every corporation. For example, they will sign contracts. They'll get all the local lawyers on retainer. And what that means is that anyone wants to sue to stop the project, they'll go to a lawyer and the lawyer will say, I'm sorry, I can't work for you on this issue. I have a contract with that company. And they won't do anything with these lawyers. They'll just put them on retainer and keep them on retainer as a way to prevent other people from even using their services. These companies will use NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and force public officials to sign them in a way that implicates government, as is so often the case, with corporate power in suppressing democracy and suppressing people's engagement with these regards to these projects. So many playbooks that come right out of the fracking industry, the mountaintop removal coal mining industry. But people are fed up. They don't want these things. The vast majority of people have they're getting no real use from AI. They're getting nothing valuable from it. All they're seeing is electric prices skyrocketing, the internet becoming less and less usable and useful, and AI tools being weaponized by demagogues as propaganda tools, propaganda generators. So we are seeing people fight back against these projects. We need more of that. And we need to be bold. We need to be willing when we're fighting these projects to not just say it needs to be done in a better way, it needs to be smaller, it needs to be sited in the right locations. I'm sorry, but that's all bullshit. We don't need it at all. We don't need these things at all. There's no benefit to people and to the planet. The only benefit is to the wealthy, the ruling classes, corporations, intelligence agencies, the rich. That's who's really benefiting from this. And we need to name that. We need to be explicit about that and be willing to clearly and decisively oppose these things and take action in ways that will actually stop them. That's obviously very challenging because of the political environment that we live in. The laws are not on people's side. Corporations have more rights than we do. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. That means we need to do it even more. And that means we need to build movements that are not just about working within the system, but are actually engaging in processes of revolutionary transformation, overthrowing these systems. Because remember, the system isn't broken, it's fixed.